Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm sorry if I'm late for the last 2 minutes, but we had some problems at this end, and I hope everybody is well. I've got a guest today. He's called David. And David, tell everybody about yourself and where you come from.
Sure, no problem. I come from across the pond. I live in right outside of New York City, and that's where you hear a little bit of the accent. And what I do is I help people reduce stress, and also, write books. I'm a prolific author, as well as getting people to align their message. Right? We all have a message that we want to share with the world, and that's why meeting people like yourself, where we have that opportunity, really helps.
And what is your message? What is your actual message to my listeners here in the UK?
Yeah. So the message is, there's resilience. How to get up. We all have faced it. That those ashes, right? The phoenix story of being in the ashes. How do we rise ourselves to that next level? And that's one of the things that I love talking about, because that's how we get up every day, by doing the things that need to get done.
Right. Okay. So what we're going to do? What what made you start doing your podcast? Something must triggered you and said, right, you know, um, you know, I'm going to kind of like try to help other people because I've been through it. Tell us about the beginning of it. I mean, from the start.
Yeah, well, so the start was a little bit of going back to having the ability to to speak to other people during the pandemic. It's I've been out since February 2021, and everybody else is starting a podcast. But I had a passion, because right before the pandemic, I attempted suicide. So one of my crossroads are the mental wellness. I knew how to do things. I knew how to take care of myself, but I wasn't doing it. We all do that. We know the right things to do, and what we need to do to make sure that it continues to go on.
Yeah.
So
So that so when you come to that crossroads in life and you wanted to commit suicide, I'm glad you're here. I'm
yep.
glad you're here. But what stopped you from not co- committing suicide? Was it faith? Was it because you want to leave people behind?
Actually, it was just the God's will. I was ready for it. I was fully committed to it. So it wasn't a situation of not being committed to it. It was actually more of a situation of God wasn't ready for me. I when I was attempting suicide, I actually was told it's not my time, and I have to go back to tell my story. So I really dove into that mental wellness journey as part of that crossroad of my life.
Yeah, yeah. And then all of a sudden you kind of like you went to that crossroads. You decided what way to go. And you thought, well, what's the best way to go in my life? Do you believe in God?
I do believe in God, for
So,
sure.
yeah. So you must have said to God, right, God, you know, help me and tell me what way you want me to go. So now we're on that direction. We're getting there. So you're getting there, and all of a sudden you says, right, okay, I'm going to turn my life around. The suicidal thoughts are still there, and it's triggering me. But with your help, Lord, you can help me. So then, what did you do then?
Well, the thing about God is God's going to let us do either way, right? It's free will. That's one of the things that God
Well,
believes.
yeah, it's
But
choice.
just hear me out for a second. I promise you, I have a method to go to, and but it's one of those things we have to do our own work. There's nothing God's going to let us do, right? That's why evil's being done in the world. God doesn't go, okay, we're going to protect. Bad things happen to good people,
Right.
and I needed to take some of the ownership of my actions and things like that. God's with me every day. God, there's that old poem of walking along the beach, and there's two sets of footprints, and at one point, there's only one set of footprints, and they go, God, why'd you leave me? And God's going, no, I carried you during those moments you couldn't carry yourself. So yeah, I do believe that in my darkest moments that God is there, but I need to still take action. So with me, I had to take action to use my some of the things that I knew, the resources I knew how to do that to then begin the healing journey. And there's still a journey. I mean, while I'm only 6 years out, I'm a completely different person, head wise and mental health wise. So that's the real issues is how we get to that crossroads, what we do with it, and what changes we're going to make. Right? You could be on that crossroads and still go straight the way that you were going. I decided to kind of take a left somewhere and then use the resources I knew, look for more resources, and I knew that again. I was told not by God but by an angel who said to me, you have to go tell other people about this story. And that's what I've been doing since. I've been making sure that throughout everything I do is telling the story. And that's where the power really comes into. The story comes and the power goes into what we do with it. Once we have that information, we all know, the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. And we don't always do it. All of us. There's not one person on this planet who doesn't do that, right? Even our kids, right?
Yeah.
We catch them stealing an extra cookie. They know not to take the extra cookie. Now, they want it. And that's what it is. Now, for suicide or mental wellness, it's not just a cookie. I mean, there's bigger issues. So I had to figure out how to get up out of the ashes of my life and make sure that I was able to do things that are healthy. So now I've built a stronger foundation and recognize when I'm not feeling well, which is really the important part, is recognizing those things and being a little more self-aware of things along the way.
Yeah. And I just want to congratulate you for your recovery. Because a recovery takes a long time.
Sure.
I remember when I was in suicidal mode. I wanted to jump off a bridge,
Yep.
and that was it. And sometimes we make decisions, then all of a sudden we we come to the point of we want to commit suicide, and we're thinking, hang on a second, who we're going to leave behind? Why are we doing it? And on the other side, the devil is saying, jump, jump. I don't care about you. So, so, so now for you, you do your podcast, and on your podcast, what do you talk about? Tell everybody about your podcast.
Yeah. So the podcast is Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat.
All
So
right, bring it back, right?
bring a bat. But the bat is about bringing awesome thoughts or
Yeah.
being authentic today, right? So
Wow.
when I first started in 2021, it was to hear stories like I'm sharing with you today about people who needed to get up out of the ashes because I wanted to make sure everybody knew of those stories, have those abilities to then get up. Like, what do we do? How do I get up? Man, so Steve, how did you get up? Right? That's part of the story, not the fact just that you got up, but how you found resources to get up and change your life. And that's exactly what I wanted. And then I also have had, 30 plus years in corporate America working at high levels, talking about leadership, being a leader. And those are the questions that I then have. So it's a blend of really what brings us to that level of being a leader in our lives. So for mental wellness, you're still a leader. You're a leader in your community. There's so many different things. Like you mentioned about, was I worried about leaving people behind? I was okay with leaving people behind at that time. Today, I don't want to leave anybody behind.
Don't you
But
think that?
I, I
Don't you think at that certain time? I know sometimes when we go through being suicidal, also there's a bit of selfishness there because you probably have family behind you.
Yeah, so for me, that wasn't the case. So for me, the case was I was told that I was the cause. I was the problem. Everybody's having problems because of you. So I was actually how I looked at it. I was actually making everybody better. If I was the problem, which it turns out I was not, but if I was the problem, then we remove the problem. And in fact, when I attempted, I wrote over 50 letters to people to explain to them this had nothing to do with you. This had nothing to do with this was a personal decision for me, and I don't recommend it. Right. So let's also make sure that we while we're talking about it, I don't recommend it. I've now learned so many other things by going through that darkness, and that's one of the messages and missions that I have to stop suicide because there's so many different ways to rebuild your life, no matter what has gone on. That's the hope that I want to give everybody, because hold on, hope it has a lot of meanings. Hold on, pain ends, and that's really one of those things because we generally a lot of those people. So there are people who attempted suicide who at the moment they're like, oh my god, what did I do? Jumped off a bridge or things like that.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case for me. That I wasn't, like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. At the beginning, I really believed I should have, but at some point, I did hit back with reality. So whatever connection I was missing, the sadness, the upsetness, I then sought out the right resources, and I've become a resource for people as well afterwards because I understand that darkness. And it's for many people, it's like even for me, it was me removing myself out of a situation that I was told that I was the problem versus actually doing something where you just want the pain to end, right? That's really what it is that we're in so much pain that we don't know how to stop the pain. We don't, that's why we'd rather be dead, right? We think that's a temporary answer. It's a permanent solution, but it's a temporary answer because it causes so much more, collateral damage. Where you're talking about, leaving the family and you don't want to do that. I was comfortable because I was told I was causing problems. And if I was causing problems, that's the last thing I wanted to do. But and the truth of the matter is, I now have also shown my family and those that I love a completely different person that, physically I'm the same person, but realistically I'm not the same person. And I won't go back to that
Well
type of
done.
thinking.
Well done. It's like a phoenix, isn't it? You're coming out of the fire like a phoenix, and that's what I can see from you.
Yep.
What I like about you, I listen to, I've got a well-known podcast, and sometimes I listen to people, and there's people that come out and they tell their story, and okay, it's good, but what you're telling me and what the recovery and everything and what you're doing, it's amazing. You're an amazing person. Never let anybody put you down where you were before.
Never.
Because
I
never.
have the resources. So, one of the things is when you build the right resources, believe me, I still get sad at times, right? Life is going to life.
You get depressed, don't you, now and again? Yes.
Depressed, no. So we use that word way too quickly. So I don't get depressed. I get sad at times, 100%, but I don't get depressed. So depression for me, I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to move. It hurts. There's a different level than sad. And, so now today I get sad at times, right? Not everything's going to go right. How do we figure out what we need to do to move forward? Those are the...
And I was just about to say that to you. So tell my listeners, how do we go forward, move forward? How do we do that?
Well, the first thing is saying I want to move forward, right? I was a recovery coach. I helped a lot of people through various stages of recovery. And once you have that window open of the opportunity, not saying that you're changing any behaviors, but saying I want to be here. And once you say you want to be here and you start changing those things, that's where the power comes in. And that's what I do now is finding people where they're at and figuring out how we do it. So the part of the resources is knowing, being more self-aware for myself. When I know that I'm feeling a little more stressed, when I'm feeling a little bit more, just off, things are upsetting me, or lots of things come in, I know I need to spend more time to not just say, I know what to do, I actually have to do it. I make sure that every day I wake up in the morning with gratitude and I go to sleep with gratitude. Even when the things didn't go well, I make sure that I'm able to say, I'm grateful. And when the days don't go well, I go, what am I going to learn from those opportunities? There's a learning thing in everything we do. That doesn't mean we should fake it till we make it, because we should acknowledge what we feel and how we feel 100%. But how we get through it, what do we have to learn in certain experiences? That's where the power really comes into it.
Brilliant. We're going to stop for a minute, just for a little break,
Yep.
and we'll be back in a few minutes, guys. And I'll see you in a bit. Well done so far. Well done. Have you been busy?
I have been busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
past 3 months, I've been crazed, in a good way.
Brilliant.
Life is starting to line up really well.
Yeah. Sorry, we're just doing that on radio. We're on radio, so doing radio and podcasts.
Yeah, you can get your
So,
advertising in and go for it. Don't worry about it. We're all good. I appreciate the opportunity.
no, you're okay. You're welcome. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you. No, it's the I just think it's the fan that's next to me that's doing the noise.
Mm.
Yeah, that's fine. No, it's not a problem, don't I? Okay, thank you. Okay, and welcome back. Welcome back. I hope everybody is okay. Now, we're going into the second part now with David, and we kind of like started from the beginning. We went to the middle part. We went to the point where he was on the crossroads, and he kind of like turned to the left and everything, and he kept on going. He's got all the resources and everything, and now we're divulging into his own podcast and everything, and what he doesn't do. So I'm going to ask you now, David. When you kind of like help people, what resources do you give them?
Well, I give them the power again. So I meet them where they're at. So what that means, if no matter where you are at, when I was a recovery coach, when I was an advocate, one person came in using substances, and he says, "You're going to be upset with me." I go, "I'm not." I go, "You showed up there." So it's not that you have to stop the behaviors you're doing, but recognize that it doesn't work for you. So that's really what I learned for myself as well, is learning what I needed to do for David. So when I was attempting the suicide, I was told I need to tell my story. So I've been telling stories on podcasts since then. I've also been an author since then. I wasn't an author beforehand, and I've published over 10 books, and I have more in my laptop I got to get out. But those are the things that we do. There's a lot of tools, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of one of the tools I love, because I learned it through my own therapy, and then I became certified in it. Is called Havening. I don't know if I know it's popular. It's
No,
popular
no.
in the UK, but Havening is a psychosensory touch modality. So I'm going to show you, and I know we're on radio, but I'll show you. It's like washing your hands. If you rub your hands in a circular motion, in a slow motion, it's going to cause delta waves, and the delta waves will help you relax your body. It's the same brain waves we use when we go to sleep, and there's a lot of ways using those delta waves to help you overcome some of the feelings that you might have of I've helped people excel at sports, but I've also helped people get through traumatic events that have happened in their lives. And so there's a lot of magic that we can do, and I train people how to do that, to overcome the challenges and see things. It's not therapy. I'm not a therapist, so in the U.S. I can't practice therapy, but I've helped people, guide them through different ways, and then I help them get their story in life. I'm sure most of your audience has a story. Even when those people who don't think that they have a story, sit with me for a few minutes and I guarantee you we'll figure out a story, because we have the power of what our story is. And our story becomes so much more. That's why I've become a prolific writer. There's so many stories within me, and I give birth to those. I'm like a writing doula, I guess. But
Yeah.
That's among the ways. I mean, there's a bunch of different techniques that I use. There's not any one technique, because everybody's different. It's like a fingerprint. Everybody's a little bit different, and that's where we just need a little more help and things like that.
Okay. And tell us about what your books are called, how people can kind of like get a copy, or where can we buy your books to?
Yeah, all my books are on Amazon, and so it's the great thing about my name, David Chemetsky. It's unique. It's really my name.
Well,
But
yeah,
there's not a whole lot of David Chemetsky's who are authors. I'm the only one, I think, in the world.
yeah.
And that being said, that's the easiest way to find me. The same thing on social media. Reach out to me on social media. I make it easy for everybody by using my name. So those are among the easiest ways to reach out to me if you're feeling that you need some guidance. I work with people of all different races and creeds. I'm an executive coach, so I work because I had 30 years of corporate experience where I worked at high levels with some of the top companies in the world, and I've just learned things over the years. So, and I get to see it. I've been trained. My bachelor's degree is in behavioral sciences, so I have an expertise in working with people on helping them overcome some of the challenges and or obstacles in their way.
Wow, 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 brilliant. So now, what I usually do with most of my guests, I usually do a couple kind of like warm down. I'll call them warm down questions.
Mhm.
They're like funny questions type thing. And then what we usually do, I usually ask my guests to come back another time and do another podcast
Sure.
with me. Yeah, with me. Okay. Um, if you had £1 million, say, what would you do with it?
What I do is pay off my debt, right? So whatever I have. But what I would love to do, one of the things that I love doing is I'd love to give it away, and
Right.
I'm being serious with it. I'm a big philanthropist. I run a charity called Goons for Good. Like the old time 1920s gangster goons. Uh, but I love, so I'm the Goon Father. One of my nicknames is the Goon Father. But it really is. I love giving back because when you follow me, you'll see that I don't just talk about it. This is not just the right answer to have on a podcast, on a radio show. I love giving back, and I love being part of that giving back. There's a day that's coming up in here in the States for me. It's called D3 Day. It's Disability Dream and Do, where we help special needs children get on a baseball field and play baseball.
Oh,
And
brilliant.
so it's that's why there's so many different ways. I want to end suicide prevention. So I one of the books that I wrote, Between the Twist, is all the proceeds for that book goes to a charity that wants to stop suicide in Delaware, because as we know on both sides of the pond, is that our first responders and our military, we lose, more. They always go 22 a day. The number is unfortunately much higher to suicide. So I want to make sure that I've done my part when it's my time to close my eyes, to say I've done it. So if you gave me $1 million, I'd love it. It would help me a little bit, but I'd make sure that $1 million would turn into a whole lot of change for a lot of lives.
Brilliant, brilliant. If if you had one, if someone said to you, you can have one thing to change the world, what's that one thing that you would do?
I love writing books. I got to tell you, but I want to make sure everybody has their own book. I don't care if there's too many books in the world. Guess what? We could donate them. There's a lot of times when I fly to speaking engagements that I just give it to people along the way who look like they need a kind of pick me up. I love doing pay it forward type of events, and because that's what we do is if we pay it forward, man, it does come back. The universe has blessed me in so many ways that I'm allowed to do that. Not everything is about finances. It's all about paying it forward. And, hopefully I've done that with your radio program.
Well, you have actually. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So, also, so if you were like, so can you imagine it? You won that £1 million and you bought a desert island, right? Right?
Yep.
Now, who would you take with you?
Who would I take with me? I don't know, man. I'd have to think. The part of it is, before the suicide attempt, I never wanted to be alone. Now I like to be alone, but not all the time. So, I have a girlfriend. I would take. I would, there's people I would take. I don't know that I want them to stay with me on the desert island. So I want to make sure that part of that £1 million is probably a boat so they can leave at times. So that way I can.
Okay. Okay. David, I've got to go.
Okay.
Okay. But it's been nice to talk to you.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll be in touch very soon.
Yeah, 100%. I loved it. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Steve.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.